Welcome to Dark Loops, the Lasso Crew, a podcast in which we discuss the Apple series Ted Lasso. I'm your host, Dr. Scott Jordan, aka Zombie Scotty, cognitive psychologist, philosopher at Illinois State University. And tonight we discuss episode 4, The Carol of the Bells. So, fellow members of the Lasso Crew, please say hello to the audience and tell them a little something about who you are. And we'll start with Kerri.
Hi, I'm Kerri Morris, and I just dropped something. I teach writing and rhetoric at Governor State University.
Fantastic. How about you, Tom?
I'm Tom Buller. I'm a professor of philosophy at Illinois State University.
Fantastic. How about you, Sistah Kay?
I am Sistah Kay, aka Kelsey, and I am one of the hosts of the Sistah Speak production series of podcasts.
Very, very cool. And how about you, Montien?
Hi, Montien Miller, registered nurse, IT analyst, TV enthusiast, and I think I'm trying to channel the Brett or somebody with the hairdo because it's still wet.
Love it.
Looks great. So you guys know how we do this? Favorite scene, favorite line, favorite character?
Yeah. Well, I feel bad because I think everybody else is going to choose this one. So I'm going to choose my second favorite because I don't want to steal. I know what Tom's favorite line is. So at the beginning when Jamie comes in and he doesn't have a gift and the whole room, puts a gift together for him and wraps it and all of that. Yeah. And he says, "God bless me, everyone." God, it just sums up Jamie Tart. It's just so perfect. I love everything about that scene. I love how they all work together. I love how he realizes that he's an idiot, but then doesn't realize that he's a narcissist.
No, doesn't really care. Yeah. And I love when Rebecca says, "Oh, Jamie." After that's funny. And I do love how quickly I'm thinking like, but I got a bottle of single malt in their in the cabinet, good for them, right? And Doo Super Squad puts it all together very quickly. I just love that kind of tone ran through the whole episode, and I just loved it. Someone else.
Let's see. I liked when they were all the footballers were showing up at Higgins' house, and the one footballer, Terry, shows up and he says, "I just walked into your neighbor's house." He starts laughing and he goes, "Let's get drunk." Like, what?
I loved it.
Well, Kerri, remind me what the Nigerian football player's name is.
Sam.
Yeah, so my favorite line when isn't it Higgins says to Sam, "What does Christmas remind you of?" And he replies, "Colonialism."
Yeah.
That's so Sam, back home, what does Christmas make you think of? Colonization.
Colonization.
And then he goes, "Of course."
Love it.
I think my favorite scene, there's so many good ones. I love the scene with I always love the scenes with Roy for some reason. I like his crusty, demeanor, and with his niece, I just love that. And Keely, I like her too, and I like them together. And I love the scene when they're both smelling her breath, and they're, you think they're gonna be like, "Oh, it's nothing." She's like, "Woo!" But I think my favorite scene of the episode was when Higgins was given a toast, and just one thing that he said, which is he named off all of the places that they were from, which I thought was great because he actually listens and got to know them to know that and pronounce them correctly. And then when he said, to all of our, what do you say? To the family that we were born with and to the family that we've met along the way. I just love that because I always feel like that's so appropriate for the community that we've all built, our podcasting community, our Sistah Speak community, and then just people that I know I've worked with and they've become really good friends. I just feel like I love that theme. And
Mm,
I tend to gravitate towards TV shows that kind of have that same theme too.
Yep.
That like you have these people thrown together some way, usually through work, and they end up becoming a family, and how do they make that work? And of course you always have, you don't get along with everyone, but they're still part of your family.
yep.
I like that theme. So
Yes. I when I first watched it, I was Tom, I thought I was channeling you for a minute because I was like, oh, they're not gonna do the hokey Christmas trope, like
Yeah.
so I was so nervous, especially when It's a Wonderful Life came on the TV and Ted sitting there drinking whiskey. I was like, oh, please don't do it. And then they totally shifted it. So by the time I watched it again, I started calling out all of the different Christmas tropes and started writing them down and the different Christmas songs. I'm not going to take the list, but it was something that I was kind of being mindful of and paying attention to. And then it gave me a better appreciation for how this episode all tied together as well.
Mm. Yeah, when he was watching A Wonderful Life, it's precisely the moment when he jumps in the water that Rebecca threw a snowball or something at his window. And
Yes.
that's the whole point. Someone was there for Ted. There wasn't anybody there for him in the movie, right? In that moment of loneliness. And that was very clever. Could be, seen a little bit heavy-handed, but I absolutely loved it.
was
Well,
anyone
Clarence was there.
Yeah, after he jumped.
Well, I mean, he met him in the water.
All right.
Was anyone nervous though about that? Because when she showed up, I was like, no, don't do it. Don't.
Oh, you
Mm.
thought like romance kind of thing?
I thought so. That
No,
they're
they
going to
played
try
with
to.
it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They did play
Yeah,
with
a
it because
little
after
bit.
they dropped off the toys, they had this little interaction with what's next,
Mhm.
with a little back and forth on the face. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, that's how you set up the
I was
kiss. They
like,
did all that on purpose. And
No, don't do it.
please don't. And they didn't. And that was
Good.
very cool.
I was so happy they did.
What was the
Mhm.
point of the Christmas presents
Which one?
when they go door to door?
Well, the
Oh,
point
that's.
was, go ahead. No, please go ahead.
It's to give to others. It's to give to others who didn't have the ability to obviously afford gifts, that had sent in letters to probably like I know I have some relatives that they aren't able to provide as much as others, so they have different Christmas list bureaus that you can sign up for to
Mhm.
help kids that are less fortunate with Christmas presents, and people go and
Yeah.
donate. So I think that was the point, was to not think about you being alone and not being with your family, but giving to others kind of helps you feel better about yourself, even if you're not around your loved ones. And I think that's what the point she was trying to make there, is to
Yeah.
do something for someone else so that you're not sitting home alone like she was last year,
Mhm.
Mhm. That's an American thing.
dwelling
too.
on herself. Yeah.
I've answered Christmas letters, and one year when my son had open heart surgery, my mother had sent a Christmas letter to an organization, and they came to the house on Christmas with the toys that he had on his list too. So it's a thing.
There you
So-
go.
And I don't know if this is what you were getting at, Tom, in terms of points showing that generosity. But I think one of the things that, they did, like you guys have mentioned already, is that they're playing a little bit with our expectations. And
Mhm.
I think we expect Ted Lasso to be the one to go out and give to other people. And Rebecca, snob, is the one, who has the less to learn. And I think the tables are turning for Ted a lot in this season. And, it doesn't occur to him to do something. And instead, he's slowly getting more and more depressed, drinking whiskey, watching It's a Wonderful Life.
Yeah, I mean, it was she who came out and dealt with his panic attack last year, right? And
Exactly.
she predicts what he's going to go through, and she goes to see him. Because remember, when they were talking with the Diamond Dogs, she asked him what he's going to do, and he said, "I'm going to do a FaceTime all day with my kid." And then she kind of rolls her eyes. One quick shot, she knows that's not going to happen. And
Right.
so she knows what's going on with him, and she's helping him out. And then when they were delivering those gifts, I watched him the second time she was talking to the girl. So the girl said, first of all, Mom, there are two white people at the door. They're smiling at me. That was just hilarious.
I love that line.
The parents come out, and the parent comes out, and Rebecca does all the talking, and Ted's acting bit there is just fantastic. He just kind of stays plain face, doesn't look sad, doesn't look happy. He's just her stage. She's doing her thing, and then she goes, "What do you think?" And then he goes into this whole story about Rudolph nose being too bright, and that does a Ted Lasso kind of joke. But I just really think they nailed the whole relationship there in terms of him. Like you said, this isn't where he wasn't in the lead, and he was in a space where she was leading, and he was adapting to the situation kind of in his head. I thought that was great.
Well, this
You know,
is kind of
they title what, I'm sorry, Kerri, but they
No, go
title
ahead.
what Ted says as Tetaphors on the Apple Plus and the extras. Metaphorically speaking, they have a lot of his metaphor dialogue. Pretty
That's great.
interesting.
Say that again.
Yeah, so they I watch everything that's on Apple Plus related to the show. So they have these outtakes, and one of them is titled Metaphorically, and then they give you the definition for a metaphor, which is basically all of his little metaphors, his one-liners, and they strung them together in a video montage.
Oh, I need to go watch
That's kind of clever.
Oh, I'm gonna go back and watch that. That sounds
I am
like
too.
fun.
I'm not.
You're not. Well, given
That doesn't
Tom's
surprise me.
said this to Tom Knott, here's why I think the writers of this show have just outthought everyone, right? I mean, last week it started turning a little darker, and so we're thinking, oh, what's going to happen? And not only do they give us pure sentiment, right? Pure sentimentality, but all the Christmas sentimentality. They do it right when we're expecting things to get darker, and they do it in August. And it's just another 180. Oh, you thought we were going to be totally serious now? Come on. No. We're going to show you that we know what you're expecting, and we're just going to drop this on you. And I just applaud top to bottom. They put this episode at this point on purpose. It's as if they expected people to be writing things like what was posted in the New Yorker last week.
I will say, though, that scene with It's a Wonderful Life, I'm someone who has lots of opinions about It's a Wonderful, and I think it's very a tragedy movie. And I think Frank Capra intentionally is building it that way. And the same way with Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. This is not a sentimental, it's not okay. I think that that Jimmy Stewart has given up his whole life, for this town and whatever. But I think there's some foreshadowing going on there.
Sure.
Ted is watching him getting ready to jump and drinking his whiskey. And I probably shouldn't say it out loud, but I guess I feel like this might link to Ted's dad.
Ted's dad?
To Ted's dad.
No, I think you make perfect sense. I think that,
because
I think you're right.
He says about his dad, he was harder on himself than he ever was on us. And so I think there's that, a little bit of that darkness, and thank God they didn't stay there if it's going to be a Christmas episode. Another thing I wanted that just occurred to me is that every one of the threads, the Higgins thread, the Ted Lasso thread, and then the Keeley and Roy thread, it's all built around doors opening. So all of the stories are driven by these doors opening. And they're going one after the other and opening these doors. Now, I don't know what to do with that. And you would think as an English major that I would have some idea. But it just occurred to me that's just this theme.
No, it's fantastic. And I do think you're right. I mean, they are definitely it is going to get darker. you know, the return. I mean, I'm sorry, but the Empire Strikes Back is what we're doing, and it's just going to get darker and darker over the course of the season. And this for me is like you know, kind of another 180, and it's got that, like you said, that wonderful life foreshadowing built in. So I think it's masterful how they're just setting all this up one thing at a time.
You know who was missing though? Dr. Sharon Fieldstone. She
Yes,
was
she
missing
was.
this week.
You're right.
Yes, she was.
And
Oh.
nobody mentioned her absence. Like there was no reference to her going on holiday with
She was
family or
fired.
friends.
She was
I
fired.
think she got
Yeah.
fired, Tom.
Yeah, there was all that gossip about her. Well, I want to say that I want it just to completely do a 420 and get rid of everybody else but Roy and Keeley and the niece. I mean, I think it should just be the Roy and Keeley show.
They are great.
They are fantastic.
The door-to-door stuff was just, I thought, the best bit, and just the interaction with the people that came to the door. And then, as Kerri said when we were talking about it, the homage to Love Actually at the end was
Right.
a lovely touch.
It was so perfect.
It's great.
Oh God.
And I love the way. Go ahead, Kerri.
No, I was just going to say that I love how they put kind of adult concepts into the mouths of the kids. And so
Yeah.
two of those that stood out was when the dentist is asking, what's the niece's name?
Phoebe.
Phoebe is
Phoebe.
asking Phoebe, have you experienced any stress lately?
Mm.
And she says, not if I do my breathing exercises,
There you go.
which just I thought was great. And then the
Mhm.
little girl who we meet, who gets the toys, and he says that you can still smell the Himalayans on it. And then she smells it and she says, am I getting notes of Beijing?
No, it's fantastic.
And I
That
love
was
that
so
they
cute.
give those lines to kids.
Absolutely. And I like how Roy has a way of admitting things that he does that could be seen as bad, you know, like the whole poop joke. And then the kid says, the kid hears him in the door, says, you pooped your pants? And Kent stands up and says, yes.
What
What of
about
it?
it? Yeah.
And exactly. And suddenly he says, maybe the two of us should try to do better. And he just finds a way to take these things and be encouraging.
And make it normal.
I love, exactly.
Yeah.
And I love the way they do that with his character. And I have to say, I love the whole idea of Sexy Christmas. I love how they 180
Yes.
Sexy
Yes.
Christmas.
Yes.
He walks in the door with all that stuff. He's not looking at her. We got to have Phoebe here for Sexy Christmas. And sorry. And then he turns around and he sees her. You
Yes.
look great. I just love
That
it.
outfit, oh my God, that outfit was amazing.
It was.
Yes, it was.
Yes. Did you miss the lamp too from A
I
Christmas Story?
saw
Did not
that.
miss the
Christmas
lamp.
Story.
Not to we
the fishnet
Americans.
stocking leg lamp.
Mhm. The leg lamp.
Fragile.
I'd love to see your list, Monteith, about all the
Oh my
different
gosh.
Christmas.
Between the
references.
songs and the references, I got 50. And I didn't even think I was gonna have 30, but
Wow.
I
Wow.
just went crazy. It started with the office party with booze. I don't know. I don't know if they do that in Europe, but in America, well, before they
Die
got
Hard.
so pious about it, and all the Christmas parties had liquor, whether you saw it or somebody
Back
just
in the
did
day.
just try to punch. Yes. You want me to go through it? No, you don't want me to go through it. It's 50 items.
Go
I'll
through
just
some of them and then mail the
pop
list to
them
me and I'll
in.
post it with the podcast.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
go ahead, go through some of them.
the reindeer ear headbands that
Hmm.
Keely wore, the silly paper hats, the paper chain decorations in the locker room office,
Hmm.
celebrity Christmas party. There's always a Christmas dilemma in a lot of stories, right? So they had a couple of Christmas dilemmas. It was Phoebe's bad breath this time,
Hmm.
but it got resolved by the end of the episode. the Christmas rescue with the benevolent act, with Rebecca and
Mm.
Ted. Keely's sexy Christmas outfit. I don't know. There's always some kind of sexy Christmas going on. Keely plucking the pimentos out of the olives and making the yuck face when she was doing them, and the awful Christmas gifts. Who hasn't gotten a bad Christmas gift, whether at school or the office? It was just like, you gave me mouthwash and toothpaste. Yes, the early guest arrival. Sam comes early. He has to go to the bathroom. It just went on and on. But I just had a fun time going through it and pulling out some of those things.
Yeah, I love the way at the end they start singing in the middle of the street or wherever they were, and you can tell that it's a studio recording. They weren't recording them singing on the street. So it's the whole, I'm going to use the word overproduced. It was beautiful. It was fun. And she can sing. So maybe
she can sing.
She sang and Ted did a little bit. And then it's kind of that where when we got to that moment, it's sort of completely for me committed this. We're just going to go over the top on Christmas stuff. We're going to just throw all of it at you. And, it was what it was the first time I saw it. I enjoyed it. But I got to tell you, every time I watch these episodes a second time, they're just so much better. I laugh so much harder. And I'm not sure why, but it's just fantastic. I just watched it before this one again before we started talking. It's like I laughed so much I paused. I got to go now. I got to stop.
I'm just glad we didn't see Christmas past, present, and future. I was just so happy.
Or mistletoe. We didn't see any mistletoe.
There was mistletoe. You missed it.
Was there?
Keely hung the mistletoe when she was getting ready for Roy to come over.
Oh, I missed one.
We didn't have anyone holding it up trying to sneak a kiss from somebody, though.
No.
Anyone else? Favorite lines?
The Nerf gunfight just pleased me.
That was awesome.
It was such an American moment, I absolutely loved it. I just thought it was just fun. There's no significance there, but
who hasn't played with the Christmas toys with the kids?
Totally. Playing with the Christmas.
Absolutely.
And I thought I really thought they were kind of saying, oh, you think we're just going to be serious now? We're just going to do what we want to have the fun we want to have making this, to spread that to whoever watches it. The darkness is coming. Yes. And we're going to do this. And a lot of you are going to think it's silly. And that's the point. I just really think there's a little bit of we're going to do what we want going on. Absolutely. Right? Loved it.
Why do we think the darkness is coming?
Oh, because Ted's breaking down. You don't think so?
Well, no, I'm interested in evidence for that. Maybe it's just going to be a series of, funky, funny shows. Would that be inconsistent with what's happened so far?
I think so. Yeah. I think they've given so many clues and so much foreshadowing. They're just really, they're pushing it hard. I think all these images, they're just going totally across the landscape of literature and pop culture and all of that. Their references are so dark.
Yeah.
So if it doesn't, and it stays a kind of funky, amusing little show, will you be getting rid of the Lasso Crew? Will you be throwing away your television?
Hey, we don't negotiate contracts in public, brother, okay? That happens behind the scenes. We got to see how the season goes. Come on.
I suppose I'm asking for the rest of you, would you be right now disappointed if it kind of continued in the way it's been and this kind of playing for laughs? Or do you think it really should become a darker show?
I don't know if it should become a darker show. I just think it would be unrealistic if it kept the same positive optimism throughout the entire show that it's had. And it hasn't been all positive every episode, but in some of them, in a lot of them, it has been where you don't see the other side. Like I know some very positive, outgoing, optimistic people, but everyone has a bad day, or everyone has another side to them. And if they do not show that with Ted, I think it would be unfortunate for the show, because it would take it to more fantasy than more realistic, if that makes any sense. I know it's not realistic now, but you know what I'm saying. It'd take it more into like La La Land, Pie in the Sky to me. And like I was saying last time, you know, not every teammate would have supported Sam. Not every person would have come to the Christmas party and been, you know, happy and engaging in presents. And somebody would have said, I don't believe that, and we don't celebrate that. And, you know, but for now it's fine. But I think at some point they need to kind of show someone with an opposite view and show Ted's other side to make it more realistic, or make it more meaningful, in that he is so positive, because we need to see the other side to have that balance, to appreciate his normal persona, I guess. Not normal, but the one he displays the most. And why is he I kind of want to delve into why is he always so optimistic and positive, because I don't think he could really be.
Right. Well, I think you're right. I think that's exactly where they're going. There's a whole bunch of stuff about him we don't know. This season, we see many more characters who are foiling his optimism, not being mean necessarily, just providing contrast to him being the lead optimist. And I think that's all intentional. I'm not going to use the word should. You know, they're the writers. They'll do what they want. They have a contract with Apple. But what I'm sensing right now is a 3-act play, and we're in act 2, and it's going to get bad. And then there'll be some kind of reprieve in season 3. That's just how I'm experiencing the writing.
I mean, if it doesn't get bad, I think we have some major problems, in the sense that Ted abandoned his family and went to England. He abandoned his son.
Yep.
I mean, at some point he's got to pay a price for abandoning that kid. It's not okay with me. You know, that doesn't work.
Right.
And I suspect Dad abandoned him, you know. And
I think he's paying the price now. He's paying it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, right now, Ted's really the one, I think, suffering from it. But I mean, a kid's not going to be able to handle that and cope with that. I mean, that's going to be a real trauma for that child, you know.
He even called his gift a guilt gift, an overpriced guilt gift. So, and I put my favorite character actually as the scoreboard that Coach Beard referenced. I don't know if you paid attention. I paused it and I looked. 4 wins, 4 losses, 14 draws at this point. And what's P's? You know, I don't know soccer. It said 26.
Penalties?
That was penalties, 26.
Was it PD, point differential?
It just said P apostrophe
on
the scoreboard. Okay, I didn't know what that was. But Coach Beard said, and if we get this Boxing Day win, we'll finally have more wins than losses. And they're all celebrating Christmas and they're drinking and they're partying. I'm like, how would anyone win a game in there? Putting the bender on the day before.
Yes, that's that little edge at the end of all that happiness. Because you're right. I saw that 4-1, and then we're playing tomorrow, and I'm thinking, and the coaches are sitting here drinking whiskey. Huh? I'm not saying it's wrong. It was that edge that's there, right? And then because suddenly, like, oh man, they really have built this family, right? And they don't really care about wins and losses anymore. But, you know, as Ted said in season 1, but they're putting all that other little stuff in there. Oh, something's coming. They're all drinking. This family thing is nice, and something's going to happen. I really think that they're going to trade Sam at some point. They're centering him quite a bit this season.
Oh, I don't want to lose Sam.
I
I
know.
know.
I mean, that's going to rip
Awesome.
the heart right out of the team and right out of the show.
Well, he's got a 3-movie deal with Fox, so
Really? For real?
no.
Oh,
Mm.
I saw a little foreshadowing though, because I was looking at everything, and Sam had on a Nike hoodie. So I'm like, was that product placement, or was that Brandon, or was that foreshadowing? Because we know they lost their sponsor. Well, we think they lost their shirt sponsor.
Yeah, we don't know how that turned out, do we?
No, not yet.
No, not
They're
yet.
all
Yeah.
drunk
That's gonna
tonight.
come back. That's gotta come back at some
No,
point.
I think it is. I think it'll probably come back in the next episode pretty hard.
Mhm.
Yeah. We hope you
Andrew,
enjoyed the
it was-
Christmas episode.
It was interesting that we didn't see any Jamie except for that first part
Mm.
of the
And also
episode.
Jamie and Beard are both kind of missing in action.
They
And-
are.
And the psychiatrist just.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, none of us have, when we've all talked about, what the dark side is going to be, we've kind of been talking about it being Ted's father. I actually kind of feel that's what they're doing. But there's also the possibility of Coach. There's something goes wrong with Coach, or something bad happens to Coach. And I hadn't, thought that through until you guys mentioned that he wasn't at the Christmas party. But maybe he's not feeling all that vibe.
He went to do something with Jane, his
Oh, he did. That's right.
ex-girlfriend.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
because
right.
they had
Play
tickets
chess.
to an event.
Well,
Stonehenge.
Oh,
A
it's
pagan
hilarious.
ritual at Stonehenge.
Yeah.
that's right. That's exactly what
And they
it
were like,
was.
but didn't y'all break up?
That's
He's
so
like,
cool.
and it was so funny how he did it. He's like, well, yeah, but we're going as friends. And he's like, that's not gonna be too good.
Yeah. And I loved
That
how
was
Keely
that
was in the
bad.
room with the diamond dogs. I
Yes,
just love how she
yes.
was in there, right? She was just all nestled up in her seat, having fun. and
Yes.
It's like, oh, that's
That
cool.
was awesome.
That is
I
very
like to
cool.
see that.
Talking about sexy Christmas.
I know that she brings up sexy Christmas. I just love that she brought it up at the Diamond Dog.
And they're
And
all
then
like,
she-
A little tongue in
"Woohoo."
cheek, right? A little tongue in cheek. Yeah, it's just gonna be swingers. They're like, what?
Woo.
And then just after she says the bit about the fireplace and the martinis, and then she says, yeah, and it's going to be all like that. And I just thought that was such a great line. It's gonna be all like
Mhm.
that. And I loved it. Yeah. Any other characters, lines, or scenes?
When Ted and Rebecca are walking along to go to the car, and the guy goes back and says, hey, wanker.
Yeah.
And she says, did he just call you wanker? And he says, it's an inside joke, mostly inside of him.
Yeah, no, and that goes back to so Tim is a judgmental dude, right? I mean, that's a hell of a judgmental thing to say. And just like last season during the dart game, where people weren't curious, this is another guy who's not curious. And so Tim calls it out when he sees it. He wraps it up in a cookie maybe, but he was making it clear he was judging that guy in a funny way, but still he
In
was
a
judging
funny
him.
way. So
Doesn't
go ahead.
sorry, doesn't the guy say Merry Christmas, wanker?
Oh, well, maybe that's
At
what,
the end. I
Yeah.
think he says after he calls him the word.
Yeah.
Although I was surprised that Rebecca asked him, did he call you that? Like she never heard anyone call him that.
I think that's like when you
Say,
cuss,
oh,
someone cusses in a different language or different. What I mean by that is when we had German exchange students here, and my kids would use German swear words like Scheiße, the German kids, they'd be real offended, but they weren't saying it to them. They were just saying it in the house.
Right.
But for us, it's a foreign word. We know what it means, but it doesn't have the same impact as saying it in English. So I got the sense like for Ted, it's almost, he knows what it means, but it's like a foreign language word. Whereas for Rebecca, that's the culture she lives in. And she knows what it means. And it's like, don't let him
She's
call you
like,
that.
oh,
I
okay.
don't know. That's the vibe I got. I don't know.
Yeah, that sounds accurate.
Hmm.
Well, mine was a little more lighthearted when Danny Rojas showed up at the house with his traditional Mexican ponche. And he presents it to Higgins' wife, and he goes, you know, if you want to be a little bit cheeky, you could put some tequila in it. And she smells it and goes, Danny, it already smells like it has tequila in it. And he goes, yes, this one is pre-cheat.
I love it.
Pre-cheats.
That's the kind of adult banter I love to have at my parties.
yeah.
Absolutely. Send that pre-cheek stuff my way. Absolutely. Awesome. You know. So how did you guys feel about them putting that Christmas episode at this point in the series?
I was mystified, to be honest. And I thought the whole show lacked this vibrancy of some of the other episodes that we've seen. I mean, I had to really watch a second time just to pick, just to find things, you know, in it. So it kind of left me a little bit mystified. I don't know why have a Christmas show? I mean, is that related in some way to soccer on the calendar of football? I mean, is that an important point in the season, or?
I mean, it happens. I mean, Boxing Day is around Christmas. So they really did do it early. I had the same experience you did, Kerri, and I just I see it. Oh, is this a Christmas episode? Oh, and I just kept kind of stopping and stopping until I got to the end, and it goes, oh hell yes, this is nothing but a Christmas episode with some little, you know, foreshadowing. It's a Wonderful Life thrown in. And then when I went back the second time I watched it, kind of knowing that's what it was, then I just kind of accepted it a little easier. But at first it was like, what? I was expecting all this other stuff. So yeah.
But Christmas episodes generally are one-offs, aren't they? I mean, they're an opportunity either to keep the audience numbers interested, or to give the production company 2 more weeks to work on the next episode. I mean, I don't mean to sound too dreadfully cynical, but I think it really is thrown in as a one-off.
I think you're right in a one-off. They're not going to do another episode like this season. I think it's going to be pretty straightforward plot line with a lot of humor, a lot of dread. And, you know, Kerri said this is just not consistent with the tone so far. And I think they did that on purpose, but I think they're going to go back to. I mean, this stuff's already in the can.
They did it. I didn't even think anything of it, except that they wanted to obviously move the timeline along. And that's all that I thought about it, is that obviously they want to show that it's further along in the season than we were in the episode 3. And they want us to feel that passage of time. And the only way to do that was to maybe show this holiday. And then
that's a good point.
But I didn't.
Because they're not getting promoted this year with 4 wins, 4 losses, and 14 draws. They're not going to the Premier League this year.
So that's a good point, Sistah Kay. So that's 4 wins, 4 losses, 14 draws.
Yeah.
So he's half the season's gone.
Yeah.
So the prospects of a further relegation are looming.
Oh, that's
what
it.
happens. So so what happens if they end up? Is there another relegation level?
Yeah, there's a great series.
7 Hells of
Oh, is it? Okay. I don't know.
So there's a documentary on Netflix called Sunderland Till I Die.
Oh.
Which is wonderful. It's the kind of real life version. And Sunderland were a Premier League club, and then they were relegated to the next one, which is the Championship. And then they were relegated again to the First Division. So Richmond AFC could go down yet another division. But if that happens, it's inevitable, I mean, in kind of football narrative, that Ted is fired.
Yeah, that goes along with those, when you're asking, how do we know it's going to get darker? I mean, those little lines like we're paying Premier League wages as a championship team, they're
Yeah.
laying it clear that they got trouble. And yeah, so maybe you think they're going to stay with the timeline post Christmas then?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you don't think?
It'd be
Okay.
too weird to go back. I mean, it would be like, I don't see them doing flashbacks to like a couple of months earlier.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, they skipped a couple of months, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so it'd be interesting. You guys mentioned that, Fieldstone wasn't there. Maybe she was
Yep.
fired in the last couple of months. Maybe something did happen to her relationship with the team, and we'll find out about that, later
I
on.
don't know.
No,
I
those are
think
good
there's some
points.
foreshadowing going on though, because now that you said all of that, I'm thinking about the scene at the house after the dentist,
Mm.
after the dentist finishes her assessment and everything, and then you realize there's a room full of people sitting at the
Yeah.
dining table, and the guy goes, "Yo, can I get an ussy?" And Roy stands up and was like, "Okay." And
Mm.
he's like, "Not with you, mate, with Keely." He said, "I mean, you're a legend at Chelsea, but shit at Richmond." But Keely Jones was a seminal figure in my teenage years, throughout my teenage years. And I was like, what?
Love it. He must have stayed at that hotel a few times.
That is hilarious.
That
That's
was
It was.
funny.
I love them bringing that guy back too. That was so cool.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I
So,
like that. Go ahead. I'm
Is
sorry.
there literally no way they can go back up to the Premier League at this point?
You know, I mean, that's an interesting question. I mean, we don't, I mean, there are 38 games in the regular season. So they've drawn 14, won 4, lost 4. That's 8 and 14. They've 22. So, I mean, they'd have to win basically every
Every single
remaining
game.
Yeah, I mean, they'd have to go on a real winning streak in order to get promoted.
Right.
Well, the next episode is titled Rainbow. I don't know.
Yeah.
So
know.
if they get pushed down to the third level down, how do teams come back up? They just have to win more than half of their games, and then do other teams get pushed down? Like, do they
Yeah.
have to have certain number of teams in each level?
So there are 4 divisions, and if Scott can correct me.
No,
on
go
this,
ahead.
but so it goes Premiership, Championship, First Division, Second Division. From the Premiership, each season, 3 teams are relegated and 3 teams are promoted.
Oh,
It's awesome.
And that goes for each of the 4 divisions, but for the first and the second division, the first 2 teams are the 2 teams at the top of the table, and the next team that's promoted has won 2 playoff games.
okay.
So you can win. So if you're top 6 in the championship, the top 2 will get promoted, and the or playoff games.
Yeah. So your internet went a little funky there. Why don't you start again with if you're in the championship, the top 2 get promoted, and then what happens?
So if you're in the championship, so the top 2 teams automatically get promoted.
Okay.
Then you've got the teams who are in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th positions. They will then play 2 games.
Each other?
Yeah, so it'll be drawn. So team A will play team C, team B will play team D. It's done drop of a hat. And then if you win your game, you then can go to the second game. And if you win the second game, then you're the 3rd team promoted to the Premier.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it used
So
to
it
be,
always rotates around. So at least if you had a losing season, but you win your playoff game, you still have a chance to get back up.
Yeah, so if you have an okay season and you're, let's say you manage to squeak into the 6th position,
Mhm.
and you may be 10 points below the guy who's in the team who's in the 1st position,
Mhm.
but you can have a really good playoff run,
Game.
win those 2 games.
Okay, and go back up.
Exactly.
What's
That's
really
kind
nice
of
about
interesting.
Yeah.
in the top league, the Premier League, there is no playoff. You're
Oh.
just demoted if you're in the bottom 3. So what that does is add different levels of meaning to the end of the season.
Yeah.
In other words, you're fighting to see who's going to end up the top of the league.
Mm.
The top 4 winners in the league also get to play in a bigger league called the Champions League. So you're fighting for one of those spots, and then you're fighting to avoid being in the bottom of the table. So, many more of the matches matter at the end of the season than they do in American football or American baseball.
Yeah.
It's just all a playoff system, right? And believe me, those relegation games, they're dramatic. I mean, because when you lose the premiership, then as I already said in this show, you lose money, you lose sponsors. Suddenly you can't pay for the same quality players. And that works. That's just a it's a vicious cycle, because then, like teams like Man City, they just buy whoever they want.
Yeah.
Right?
They get, so when you're relegated to the division from the Premiership to the Championship, they're what are called balloon, I think it's called balloon payments or something. So teams get a certain amount of money to cover their losses of being relegated, because otherwise it would be a fire sale of their players. But that only lasts a year. So when you're relegated, you can afford to keep most of your players, but
to try to get back up.
Exactly. And most teams who are promoted get relegated shortly afterwards.
Yeah. Very hard to stay.
So how many teams are in each? I know this is turning into a football talk, but how many
our
teams
listeners are
in
definitely interested.
So there are 20 teams in the Premiership.
Okay.
And then there are 22 in the next 3 leagues.
Oh.
And it's really, that's what they call the top 6. There are 6 clubs who dominate most things and are very wealthy clubs. And very wealthy. And then you've got 14 teams in the Premiership who, as Scott says, are broadly divided between those who are always going to be mid-table clubs. They probably won't win anything for a generation. And then you've got the bottom third, who are the teams who alternatively get promoted and relegated.
Okay.
So is it sort of based on the British class system?
No.
Sorry, I meant that to be smart, Alec.
Yeah.
Your deadpan was spot on, though.
Sorry, I missed that one, love. Yeah. But it's funny you mention that, because Richmond is a extremely wealthy, posh suburb of London. So I don't know what the equivalent, I wish I knew Chicago better. So you have to imagine the team is whatever the poshest part of Chicago. That's where this team is. And I mean, that it's kind of I suppose an inside joke, because people in Richmond, I mean, the real football teams around Richmond are in much more blue collar areas.
So back in, I think 2016, there was a team that had just recently been promoted to the Premier League, Leicester, and they ended up winning the Premier League that year. And the odds against that were astronomical, but they had a very simple way of winning. They just had this really fast guy, and they just kept kicking it down to the field to him. He just kept outrunning everybody and scoring, and everybody knew he was coming, and they just couldn't stop him. It was one of the hugest sporting events in history, right? To come up, get promoted, and then win the league. I don't know if they won it the first year they were promoted or the year later, but incredible story. So that's what we were thinking, the Ted Lasso thing might happen, right? But given Leicester happened, but I don't think with 20 points, they're going very far this year. Far with 20 points this year.
Yeah.
halfway through the season.
So then that would help the thought of Ted hitting more of a rock bottom
Yeah, sure.
situation
Yeah.
if they end up getting relegated down to the next level.
No, I mean, who even knows if Rebecca can afford to have the team?
Yeah.
I mean, she may have to sell the team completely because they're just so expensive to run.
Rupert's going to come back.
Well, you know, that's the end of Act 2, you know.
Maybe they'll all go to America.
There you go. Well, you know, they really did this family thing. You know, they got everybody together, and now they're hanging out at Christmas, and oh no, money's real and bad things are going to happen now. And I don't want to say I'm looking forward to it as a sinister person, but I am looking forward to I really do think they're telling a 3-act story about Midwest optimism. I really think that what they're doing. And if they don't do that, like Tom asked earlier, I think there will be an incredibly lost opportunity to really tell an important story now. So there's so many clues to indicate it's going that way. I just have to believe it is. But maybe they'll listen to our podcast and, oh man, listen to those guys. They know exactly what we're supposed to. Let's rewrite
I predicted it.
Rewrite season 3.
Oh, have you heard back from the Beard?
No, I can check quickly because, you know, it's one of these things where he has a Facebook account. He's got like 900 some followers, and he allows you to, you know, send a private message, but he never looks at them, I guess. I mean, hold on. Let me do it. No, I'm looking here.
I can't imagine them taking it to the US because I remember a comment Roy made in the first season. He's like, so what if, heaven forbid, I have to go to the States and play? That would be the worst.
You know, now that we're really talking soccer, I would watch out for the American League over the next 5 years. Tom's going to roll his eyes and pass out, but as more money comes into the US game, they're going to start competing for these players. And you look at the American national team, the men's American national team is doing well right now. And all I'm saying is American soccer's on the rise. And it's about getting the money and it's about competing with the European teams in terms of who can, you know, get the contracts with the players, because they make a ton of money, man. I mean, you know, as do international athletes, period. So I did send a message to Brendan Hunt, and he hasn't seen it yet. So we're hoping.
Nice. I have one more question about European soccer, football, whatever it's called. What is it called? Soccer? Football. Okay. Is there a women's league?
Oh yeah.
That's a very, very question, because there is now. But I mean, when I lived there wasn't. I mean, you know, girls didn't play football, and it was just crazy. And over the last 10 years, it's really developed. And I mean, when you got the American team, I mean, I think it's understated how extraordinarily important and influential women's soccer in the US has been, because it was the women, USA women, winning the World Cup, and they, you know, Brandy Chastain and Maya, I forget her name, and Megan Rapinoe. I mean, we started to get these world players, these incredible players, and it's what's generated interest in women's soccer. So now there's, I think I'm not sure how many teams, but it keeps on all the major, I think it's true to say, all the major Premiership teams. I mean, I know Man United now has a women's team.
Oh,
and if you look at their website, you can see, you know, they have the men and the women. So it's been transformative, absolutely transformative.
Yeah, we
That's
now
awesome.
have professional women's soccer in the United States. The Chicago Fire used to play at a little field, like um, just just in the south side of Chicago. I don't exactly remember the Bridgestone. I don't remember the town, but they're now playing in Soldier Field, and the women's team is now playing in the field on the field where the men used to play. So I haven't
That's
been to a
awesome.
match yet, but Tom and I went to a few of the matches. See the Chicago Fire a couple of times. It was fun. I mean, when you're these days, when you're watching the Premier League soccer, I'm going to argue you're watching the best soccer in the world, and it's just hard to watch anything else.
Oh,
All right,
I got
well,
one more
please go
line,
ahead.
one more scene. So when Ted and Rebecca are looking at the musicians on the street, and Ted puts some coins in their hat, and then Rebecca pulls out a wad, counts it out, and then she just drops the whole thing in there. And Ted goes, "I guess that's what I get for taking a twinkle next to John Holmes." And she just looks at him and starts laughing.
Now, see, that scene was about the British class system, right? That scene was All righty then. Well, that about wraps it up for tonight's episode. Thanks so much for tuning in. Lasso crew members, please tell the audience where they can find you on social media, and we shall start with Montien.
You can find me on Twitter at NursyPoo2K2.
Fantastic. How about you, Sistah Kay?
On Twitter _Sistah Kay, Facebook, facebook.com/SistahSpeakPodcast, and SistahSpeakProductions.com.
Wonderful. How about you, Tom?
AKA Tom Buller at gmail.com.
Fantastic. And how about you, Kerri?
I'm at Kerri K. Morris, Kerri Morris.
Excellent. And I'm on Twitter at @dark_loops. You can find all episodes of the Lasso Crew at the Dark Loops Productions channel on YouTube. If you'd like to leave feedback about this podcast, please do so on this YouTube page, or send a message to darkloopsproductions@gmail.com, and we'll be sure to read it at the end of our next podcast. So there it is, from all of us to all of you. Big hugs, and remember, football is life.
Life.